Greetings, adventurer, and welcome to the Elder Scrolls Library. My name is Aurelius, your lore master, and today we are reading and discussing History of Lockpicking, which appears in only one of the Elder Scrolls games, Oblivion. This book contains the development of locks and lockpicking over time. Let's get into History of Lockpicking. The modern lock has a fascinating history in Cyrodill. The need to restrict access to one's home has been a problem since homes were first built. The very first security system was a simple bar across the door. This has the obvious shortcoming of only being functional when the owner is at home. The first recorded instance of a lock is the ingenious armbreaker of Castle Anvil. The Count of the Day put 5 slide bars on the side of the door. A hole in the door just above them allowed him to reach in and manipulate any of these bars. Only one of the bars truly locked or unlocked the door. The other 4 released the clasp on a hammer that fell down on the person's arm. Only by knowing which sliding bar was the true lock could one safely open the door. For over 100 years, the state of the art in locks was defined by sliding bars and punished traps. Then the famous dwarf Mzunshend invented the pin lock. The first example had 3 pins. The key was turned in the lock 4 times, each turn depending on a different pin being in position. Obviously, a pin could be used more than once. It was 65 years before anyone devised a method to open a pin-based lock without the key and without damaging the lock. It wasn't that the problem was so difficult, it was that nobody other than royalty could afford Mzunshend's locks. An enterprising blacksmith named Orenthal decided to mass-produce a common form of the lock at a reasonable price. Suddenly, every shop had a lock. Now there was a reason to subvert the locks. It wasn't long before lockpicks and lockpicking appeared. Orenthal became quite wealthy, inventing more and more sophisticated locks. Today's locks are sophisticated mechanisms with spring-loaded pins. Each metal pin must be pushed up by the key precisely to open the lock. Any imprecision in the key, any poorly made copy, or any clumsy attempt at lockpicking releases the spring tension, causing the pin to clamp down upon or even break the key or lockpick. Locks are made more secure by using multiple pins in the lock. Multiple pin locks are more delicate and difficult to make, and more expensive, but provide a greater reliability against tampering. Multi-pin locks have the further virtue of resetting all pins when any single pin is tampered with. A single mistake with the 5th pin of a 5-pin lock requires a thief to reset all 5 pins again. Most affordable locks are 1-pin or 2-pin locks. The 5-pin lock is the highest achievement of the lockmaker's craft, and the greatest challenge in a would-be intruder. Picking the modern lock is an art form. A lockpick is a thin metal bar with a small tooth on the end. The tooth is used to press the pin up into the lock mechanism. The thief uses skill and experience to manipulate each pin in turn to determine the exact tension necessary to set the spring-loaded pin at its catch point. With a subtle pressing and lofting of the pin, the master thief determines the exact motion required to set it. A novice thief breaks many picks while learning this trade. Only with time and practice will he get better at guessing the tension and timing necessary to set a pin. As a result, novice thieves tend to carry a great many lockpicks, while the masters only need to carry a few. And there we are. A history of locks and lockpicking. This is perhaps something most of us have never really thought about before. At least I know I hadn't ever wondered about the origin of locks in the Elder Scrolls. Of course it's something that would need to be developed eventually. Like the book says, restricting access to one's home has been a problem since homes were first built. A desire to protect one's belongings while away is natural. The first type of lock developed, the armbrake lock, is fascinating. Using 5 slide locks that can be accessed from the outside, but only having one of them actually lock or unlock the door, with manipulation of any of the other 4 resulting in your arm being broken, is wild. You'd hate to be coming home drunk and forget which one actually unlocks the door and then end up breaking your own arm. Though I don't think that was much of a concern, given that it was the Count of Anvil that had this first lock installed. It took over 100 years for locks to make any significant leap forward in its evolution, with the dwarf Mzunchen inventing the pin lock. With these locks being very expensive, only royalty and nobility could afford them. That was until a blacksmith named Orenthal decided to mass produce a common pin lock at a much more reasonable price. With locks now being used more frequently by the commoners, this is where we see the development of lockpicking as a skill for thieves. With pin locks becoming more readily available, leading to a rise in lockpicking, which in turn led to locks continuing to become more sophisticated. The more pins a lock has, the more difficult it is to pick. The book concludes with a description on how one actually accomplishes picking a lock. This is right out of Oblivion, the game, not the plane of existence, which tracks because Oblivion is the only game in which this book is found. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you think about this book in the comments below. And may the blessings of the 8 Divines be upon you.